In my previous video, I was mocking the left's campaign for inclusivity and diversity and using Israel FOLAU as a whipping boy for their views. But in actual fact, what they're doing in this case is really just exploiting the FOLAU issue in the quest to proactively push an ideological crusade. It's all part of a general brainwashing process to get us to think in their totalistic ideological way of thinking. You can see how this works because the subtext of the complaint is that Israel FOLAU making big statements about homosexuality, and for example, I'm not going to play with my fellow rugby players if they're gay. Some way I'm going to somehow let this issue affect the way I play my rugby or the way the team performs. You know, none of this is true, but the rugby authorities are making it out to be somehow part and parcel of his performance as a rugby player, about his performances on the field, or how he interacts with his fellow players. And I was in a discussion the other day concerning Julie Bishop. I was explaining how she had been chosen to be groomed by the Liberal Party hierarchy to be Australia's first token Liberal woman Prime Minister. It was in the general context of a lot of Liberal women who have been given political careers on a silver platter, who have then turned around and stabbed their party in the back. The party that's bent over backwards to accommodate women. And in the case of Julie Bishop, I was trying to explain how 10 or however many years ago it was, that the Liberals are deciding to groom a woman, any woman, to be Australia's first Liberal woman Prime Minister, and also how Malcolm Turnbull, when he came to power, promised to populate his cabinet with what I called so-called women, you know, like any woman will do, which is of course massively discriminatory against men. But yeah, just some random woman, and he finished up putting several women in cabinet. These women had been sitting around on backbenches for years and not really done anything worthy of their promotion to some high office. So it was a case of, you know, just scratching around for a woman, you know, any woman. And in the case of Julie Bishop, they didn't have much talent to pick from. So they pick a woman who may be able to fill this role. And I was at pains to point out that she was appointed Shadow Treasurer, which is usually the next step before you take over the leadership of the party. And she was just frankly quite, you know, hopeless in the role. She proved to be just a failure. And then she was moved across to, you know, the soft, cushy position of Foreign Affairs Minister, where she performed, I guess, reasonably well, which in feministic terms was made her a huge success. To say nothing of the fact that she was made deputy leader in anticipation of becoming Australia's first token woman Liberal Prime Minister. It was all just a case of so much affirmative action. And when she did finally contest the leadership, she got a miserly 10 votes, and she immediately started playing the victim card, you know, the feminist, a victim of the patriarchy, like all the other feminists do. Although she had made noises in the past about how women should not play the victim card. And now off she went, being a, you know, frankly sissy crybaby about the whole thing. So she played the gender card. She complained about how she'd been bullied and harassed as a woman. All the while she was deputy leader, a position of high authority. And in that time she had said and done nothing about all of this sexism that was supposed to be going on, which was obviously a fabrication of her mind. And it just serves to show what's actually going on. As we were having this argument, I was having this discussion with a family member, and in these sort of discussions, be it Israel FOLAU or whatever you're talking about, whenever you get into a discussion about these sort of political ideological issues, you've got to think that the left are Marxist. They believe in class warfare. They believe in pitting categories of people against each other. I'm in an argument with a family member that is part of a wider campaign to pit people against each other, to create a whole lot of aggravation that is simply designed to smoke out people who don't go along with the left's big political ideas. It's a way of fomenting conflict. And so they've got family members in a state of conflict about wider political issues that are basically contrived. It's a competition. In the case of feminism, it's a competition between men and women. It's a war between men and women that they foment. They engage in this narrative and they come up with heroes and villains, and it all just comes down to aggravation between people on the personal level about issues which they confect out of the ether. It's not that the disparities are not there, but it is not the competition or war that the left portrays it as. And the heroes and the villains aren't really the heroes and the villains as they portray them. It is political. That's what it means for things to be made political. It's a way of viewing things in terms of conflict. As I mentioned previously, leftists are Marxists, and they hew to a system of reasoning from the philosopher Hegel called the dialectic, which is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Hegel meant this as a way of taking an idea, challenging it with another idea, and coming up with a better idea. But what Marxism does is turns this into a war between people. And there's this element of competition, competitiveness, hatred, and a moral dimension to a philosophical precept. I was at a social occasion recently. I overheard the comment, well, it's all about saving the planet. So, you know, the red flags go up immediately. The bigger the ambition, the more the left is going to, they're going to look for the simplest possible narrative about injustice. And they're going to populate their narrative with a whole host of good guys and bad guys. And when it comes to saving the planet, watch out. Because a lot of eggs are going to be broken in the process, I can tell you. And it's one thing to shoot at a person with a bullet, but when you're using a blunderbuss shotgun in pursuance of broad generalizations to save the planet, that's when you've really got to watch out. So it all comes down to the left are constantly looking for simplistic narratives of justice and injustice and saving the world, and they are going to drag you into that conflict, into an artificial, contrived conflict between people if the earth is warming because of sunspots, I mean, I don't know whether it is or not, but if it is, you can't really blame people, can you? But then you'll talk about people not taking the requisite preventive measures concerning sunspots or whatever. There'll always be a political issue that's contrived and that you get dragged into, that you get co-opted into as the storybook villain, the storybook bad guy. That's what they do. They spend all their time doing that. And it's fake, and it's phony, and it's all in pursuance of their own totalistic worldview. So getting back to Israel Folau, Julie Bishop, you are being co-opted and written into a vast story of good versus evil. That is for somebody else's benefit, for the benefit of the political actor, and not for the benefit of the human race. I have a term for this process. I call it welcome to my nightmare. The nightmare being the left's ideological fantasy, the left's ideological fantasy land.